Hi, I'm Mark Kenyon with Garage Gurus. Today's tech tip, I want to talk to you about how to set up your scope in order to capture a relative compression waveform. First thing you're going to need is a scope. Today we're going to be using the Pico, and we're also going to use the Pico high amp clamp. And I'm going to walk through here real quick how to use the drop-down menu on this scope in order to help you to set this up. Makes it very easy. So let's go right over here to our scope. And what I'm going to do is come up here to where it says automotive. Hit that drop down and it says charging and starting tests. Okay. And right there we see relative compression. And obviously this is a gasoline motor we're working with, so we're going to select gasoline. Next thing the scope will do is it'll open up and it'll show you a picture of a known good pattern. You can see this coming across here, this waveform. And this is not a pattern specific to this vehicle. This is a generic pattern. So, we're not going to try and compare this to anything. But what we want to do at this point is we want to basically come over here and start our scope. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the green button. Notice we've stopped right here. We've got this little diamond. That's my trigger. Now, what I'm going to do with this vehicle is I'm going to set up a second channel. So I don't need the trigger, so to speak. So I'm going to click that off. And the second channel underneath the hood here, what I've done is I've connected to the IC signal on cylinder number 1. We know that when the vehicle's cranking, the IC or ignition control, being obviously generated by the PCM, is going to be very close to top dead center. So that's going to give us our reference point when we look at our waveform in order to number our cylinders, know which cylinder might be missing at that point or having a problem. Now, a couple things I'm going to do right here. I'm going to change this scaling. You can leave it like it is, but we'll get a better waveform if I drop this down a little. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it down to right around 500 amps max. And the time base is okay at this point. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to set our probe to the proper level. You can see there's a 2000 scale and there's a 200 scale. And when we set this up, it sets up for 2000. So I'm just going to slide that to the 2000 slot right there. And you'll see we have a little 0 button. And when I push this, it's actually going to calibrate itself. And we'll see it on the scope because we'll see the pattern kind of jump up, comes back down, and then basically it's zeroed. The other thing, anytime you use an amp clamp, they are polarity sensitive. If you get it on upside down, the pattern is just going to go down the screen instead of up the screen. Just flip it over. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to cause any problems. I'm going to connect this to the negative battery cable, and because I've done this before, I know which way the polarity goes. Okay, I'm going to put that on there. And then what I need to do, since I'm set up to use my IC signal, I need to turn on my channel B. And I know that's a 5-volt signal coming across there. And I'm going to just set it up at 10 volts. All I'm really using that IC signal for is a sync. All right, pretty much ready to go. What I'm going to do now is get in the vehicle and I'm going to crank it over. Now, the great thing about GM is they allow us to do a clear flood, which will allow me to crank the vehicle without starting because it kills the fuel. So let me go ahead and get that going. And we'll get a good sample here. All right, let's shut it off. One of the nice things about this scope, and many scopes will do this, it's recording the whole time. So all I need to do now is I'm going to come over here, hit the stop button, and then I'm going to come up to my frames up here of my recording, and I just need to scroll back to where my pattern is. And we'll pick this one right here. Notice I've got a lot of information coming across the screen, so all I need to do at this point is just pick out whichever one I want, and then I'm going to hit my zoom button and just kind of zoom in on that part right there. And we get that out of the way, and now we can see then our pattern. Get the pointer. We can see in our pattern right here, this is cylinder number 1 firing. Let me go ahead and zoom in just a little bit more. Make this just a little easier to see. And we can kind of manipulate this box a little bit to help us with our pattern. One of the nice things about the software on this scope. I get that box out of the way, make it easier. So we know that cylinder number 1's firing event, which should be very close to top dead center. Let me just pull that down right here. And we notice there is no pulse there. All right. And that's pretty much all we're going to need to do to capture this waveform. Fairly simple, fairly easy. And the software with the scope allows us to do that. I'm Mark Kenyon with Garage Gurus. For more information, check out our garagegurus.tech website. And for more helpful videos like this, check out our YouTube channel. Thanks.